Okay, let's continue here with the mousetrap scene of the play within the play. This is a long section, but it is, your bell work was on this today. It is very entertaining. It's when the players come to the castle to perform for the court, and they use the lines that Hamlet inserts to expose Claudius and Gertrude. The section here begins. Let's see, around line 95, when everybody enters. We're in scene 2, Act 3, scene 2, line 95, and it goes on and on. Some of the most notable points are right after line 135. After 135, we see what they call the dumb show. The dumb show is sort of a prologue to the actual play. And the characters don't speak, they come in and they do the action of the play. And we see that someone pours poison into the sleeper's ear, and the sleeper is, of course, the king. And so, right blatantly from the introduction to the play, King Claudius and Queen Gertrude are going to be really shocked by this poisoning that goes on stage. It's surprising they don't run out of the theater right then during the dumb show. But what happens during the actual show, where Hamlet made up some lines to insert into the play, is some really incredible humor, some comedy with Hamlet heckling the action and the people in the audience. The first one being line 138. Ophelia says, "What means this, my lord?" He says, "Mary, this is Mitchen Malejo." It means mischief. The footnote tells us in Spanish, Malejo means misdeed. We go on, and the player queen swears that no one would marry a second time unless she killed her first husband. And Hamlet screams, that's wormwood, or a bitter herb. The player queen swears that she would never ever marry again after her first husband died. She's trying to honor her first husband. And Hamlet screams out, "If she should break it now," which his mother, Queen Gertrude, did break that promise to not remarry. It gets more and more fun around line 231. 230, Hamlet says, "Madam, how do you like this play?" to his mother. And she says, "The lady doth protest too much, methinks," meaning this woman's talking too much. No one's going to believe her because she's babbling too much. And then the king says, "Have you heard the argument? Is there no offense in it?" So he's just beginning to be offended by the play. And of course, this is when Hamlet tells him the name of the play. He says, "The Mousetrap," in line 238. So he tells about how you have nothing to worry about. He says, "Let the galled jade wince, ours withers are unwrung," line 243, which tells us in the gloss that Hamlet says, "You have nothing to worry about, you're not guilty. Let guilty people be offended by this play." And of course, the king is stewing in his own guilt, so he is offended. Hamlet goes on to say to Ophelia, when she says, "You are keen, my lord, you are keen," a funny pun on keen, he says, "It will cost you a groaning to take off mine edge," which is a innuendo for Ophelia. And finally, the mousetrap scene ends with the king caught, and he's running out of the theater. Polonius is screaming, "Lights, lights, lights," so people can see their way out of the theater. Before the play's even over, they've run. and Hamlet and Horatio celebrate. Their plan has worked. They've discovered the king and the queen cannot view this play without reacting guiltily to the plot. So he nails them, he nails it, and he knows now that they are guilty. So we're going to have a video to watch later this weekend for homework of Papa Seydoux, the British actor who we saw the To Be or Not to Be speech in the bright clothes. We'll see his playing of this scene right after the mousetrap scene. He and Horatio are excited and so happy that their plan worked. However, what happens now is Rosencrantz and Guildenstern come in and say, the queen wants to speak with you. She's not happy with what you put on. And this is when Hamlet really lays into his old friends, his classmates from college. He calls them every name in the book. He already knows that they were sent for by the king to spy on him. And now when they have the nerve to come back and say, hey, we said we'd still be your friends. We're not going to, do what the king wants. But when they come back to do what the king wants, Hamlet unleashes a can of butt whooping on them. So we're going to see that acted out. So we won't look at that now. We'll see it on video for a homework assignment. Okay. Finally, what we want to look at is what happens to these fraudulent people. Rosencrantz and Guildenstern. Their fate isn't a good one. Hamlet gets revenge on them quite easily in the coming act. And in this very act, scene 4, we see what happens to Polonius. Spoiler alert, if you haven't read Act 3, Scene 4 yet. Polonius meets his end. In a crazy way, Hamlet puts his sword through the arras, through the curtains, when he's trying to have a heart-to-heart with his mother about her sketchy behavior with the king. Hamlet takes out Polonius, right? He says, his mother asks him in line 27, "Oh me, what hast thou done?" And he says, "Nay, I know not. Is it the king?" And he was hoping that maybe he accidentally had stabbed the king because, of course, he hadn't been able to do it intentionally. So really bizarre turn of events for Polonius. And he says about Polonius, he says, let's see. He calls him every name in the book here. Thou wretched, rash, intruding fool, farewell. I took thee for thy better. Take thy fortune, thou find'st to be too busy in some danger. In other words, you were too much of a busybody. You got what you had coming to you, Polonius. So, yes, those are lines 33 through 34. And he has killed Polonius, which to most of us, I think all of us, is a relief. The guy was just too much. Snooping around, nosy all the time. But the thing is, Hamlet has killed Polonius, but he hasn't done what he was asked to do by his father's ghost yet. And that is to kill his uncle Claudius. Okay? Again, Hamlet's on his way to England when Act 3 ends. We'll see what happens on the ship in Act 4 to England. It's not going to end well for Rosencrantz and Guildenstern. And also, it's important to note that Act 3 ends with the famous scene between he and his mother. We won't go into detail with this. It's really long, as you know, the conversation they have. And it's really a lot of contradiction in there. The key thing to note is that Hamlet asks his mom, "Promise don't tell the king, even if he's seducing you, that I am putting on this antic disposition on purpose with a intention." So he asked his mother to promise to keep his plan, which she's starting to believe is probably a vengeful one, secret from the king. Okay, so the plot thickens. Now Queen Gertrude seems to be aware of why Hamlet's acting crazy and what he's all upset about. And he's told her face to face, you killed your husband and now you're with his brother, okay? So, good job with Act 3. And we're going to be an assignment this weekend for homework. Make sure you get that done. Again, it'll be in relation to the aftermath of the mousetrap scene when Hamlet and Horatio are trying to celebrate their success from the play within the play. All right. Have a great weekend. So long.